Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate, and we're looking at the stunning first-round figures from what some thought maybe could be the third man in the race for the right-wing primaries here in France ahead of next spring's presidential election. Instead, François Fillon garnering 44% in Sunday's vote. We're talking about with Béatrice de Montier, spokesperson for the campaign, who splits her time between London and Paris. Bruno Cotres, who heads the French Political Science Institute's polling unit Cevipof. Welcome back. And Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet. Philippe, we've had an Italian First Lady. A Fillon win, if he became president, would mean France's first Welsh First Lady.
You're the first man to say that, and congratulations. We didn't know he was Welsh. He looks Welsh. But
no, but she is.
Oh, she is, okay.
What are people thinking about that? What are people thinking about that in London? Is that something that's being talked about?
I'm not sure that I think English people are just starting to look at the French election, and they're probably discovering her at the moment. But she was the wife of the prime minister, so maybe. But I don't really know the answer.
Okay. We were talking before the break about the fact that it's going to be a battle over globalization once that general election takes place, much as it was in the Brexit votes, much as it was in the U.S. Presidential election. Now, a center-right candidate who is for slashing 500,000 civil service jobs might be facing, as Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet mentioned, Marine Le Pen, the far-right candidate. She is for protecting those jobs. The change in the political fault lines between the far-right and the mainstream center-right is something that was being talked up by pundits from Marine Le Pen's party on Sunday evening.
His policies go against global trends. He wants ultra-liberalism. He wants to eradicate many public services because 500,000 civil servants are a lot to remove. He wants to increase VAT. What's happening in the world right now is a return to borders, Brexit, Trump, and what's going to happen in Austria.
Austria, where there's going to be that presidential election on December 4th, and the far-right could win. Béatrice de Montier, François Fillon embracing globalization. Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet warning that that could be a losing proposal come the general election, come the presidential election.
Sorry, I didn't know.
That if he embraces globalization on the campaign trail in the spring, he'll lose.
Obviously, I live in the UK, so I think that globalization shouldn't be out of the debate. If we want to have a strong economy, we have to be able to compete, to be in the competition with Germany, with the other countries of Europe, and with the rest of the world. So we can't escape from globalization, even if it can be scary on the identity side.
Bruno Cotres?
I think it's really going to be very messy for François Fillon. François Fillon comes from a political family, which is a Gaullist family. And during the two debates, at one or two stages, he said that he was also used to be a sovereignist. And he has used
a sovereignist, meaning somebody who's kind of Eurosceptic.
Yes. Yeah. And so he was close to Philippe Séguin. So it's not going to be so easy for François Fillon to immediately say, yes, I'm the man who is going to integrate French economy into the global world. It's not really the natural cup of tea of François Fillon, I would say. So if he's not doing so, he's going to be like in a contradiction, because you cannot make France more flexible, more open, and at the same time that you say that we should protect the borders and this kind of thing. But if he's not saying that we should protect the borders, then you have the competition with Marine Le Pen. So it's going to be quite tricky. And it's not François Fillon, it is just that the right wing in France is extremely divided on the EU issues. They are very close on the economy. We have seen some differences between their programs, but on the economy, they are extremely close actually. But on the EU, globalization, protecting the border, it's not the same story. And you have big tensions inside the right.
Has your organization done any surveys on how Fillon matches up against Le Pen?
Actually, I would say that the two electorates are not so mixed. You have obviously that question, which is the economic integration, which make a big, sharp difference between the Front National electorate and the right wing. The Front National voters are absolutely not in favor of more European integration, either on the economic side or on the cultural side. They don't want to this. They want to protect the borders on the economy, but also on migration, these kind of things. It's not the same on the right wing. So the two electorates are extremely different, not only on the EU, but also the Front National has an extremely big component, which is popular class. They want protection. The right-wing voters, they want less tax, less civil servants, less public expenditures. So it's not going to be an easy task.
Have you done the math? Like, would a François Fillon have enough votes to win the presidency?
Yes, I think that François Fillon, if François Fillon wins the nomination, first is going to be extremely supported by the right-wing camp. The right-wing voters will not disperse their vote with Marine Le Pen on the first round of the presidential election. He will get a big support because the right wing wants the Élysée. They want to eliminate the left from the Élysée, which is their target objective number one. So I don't think that François Fillon is going to be in a such bad situation versus Marine Le Pen. And I even would say that eventually it's not such a good news for Marine Le Pen that François Fillon get the nomination.
Why is that?
Because François Fillon has a capacity to cover different segments of the right-wing voters, including those part of the old Gaullist, sovereignist, those people that are not so fan of EU, but at the same time, he has like the mainstream program of the right wing in France, which is Open France, global market, and this kind of thing. So he can attract voters from different segments.
And he's also very much keen on the Catholic side of the right-wing electorate. He's very strong amongst the Catholics because of his anti-gay marriage stances. He's been supported from the very beginning by Sens Commun, which is an organization pleading against gay marriage. So he's the one that they've chosen at the beginning of the campaign, which is kind of
I just need to, he's not against gay marriage. He's not going to
against
change
gay
that.
adoption. Against gay adoption. He won't change the law, but he's toughening the
He
law.
voted against it, but says he won't roll it back.
Yes, exactly.
He will work on affiliation, but not on the gay marriage.
He's against it, but not to the point of changing the law, which obviously would be rather difficult. I mean, socially it will be unacceptable. But many voters on the right, 70% of the voters on the right are for the reversing of the law. You have to take that into account. He's more moderate than his own electorate, which will be kind of a problem.
Yeah, listening to François Fillon during those, there were 3 debates among the 7 candidates vying in the first round of the primaries of the center and right. You wondered, is it his party or is it France as a whole that has tacked to the right on issues like religion? He took aim squarely at Islam in one of those debates.
What we must fight for today is not to strengthen the existing laws on secularism. There are no secularist issues with Catholics, with Jews, with Protestants, or with Buddhists. There is a problem with secularism as it concerns the rise of fundamentalism within the Muslim community. Now we must deal with it in the same way, all other things being equal, through a very firm administrative control on Islam, and by banning Salafist associations and the Muslim Brotherhood, by banning foreign financing, and by convincing Muslims that it is their job to rise up against this growing fundamentalism.
De se révolter contre la montée de cet intégrisme.
Banning Salafist groups, banning the Muslim Brotherhood, a reminder that...
He's very strong on that.
Yes.
Turkey's president, his party has affiliations with the Muslim Brotherhood. Are these mainstream ideas in France these days?
Amongst the right, yes. You have to take into account that in France there is a huge sector of the intellectual, what we call the intellectuals, who are definitely on the right, very much on the right and anti-Islam. That's really, even on the left, you can see the anti-Islam thing growing. It's kind of surprising. So it's a very good point for him, electorally speaking, to be tough on that. I don't think that he will have the political means to ban all foreign financing in the mosques and everything, but maybe he can try to do it during the campaign.
Because
he's been the first one defending the Christian in the Moyen-Orient. So I think that it's not a calculation that is done. It's not trying to gain voice.
No, maybe
from
it's
the
authentic. I don't know.
But is it us v them, and
strong-
is it going to stigmatize France's millions of Muslim citizens?
I suppose that most of the Muslims in France really would want to have actions against le totalitarisme islamique.
Against totalitarianism, on Islamist totalitarianism.
Yeah, he's been the first one really putting a name on this enemy, and he's been very strong on that.
But the problem
already
is,
2
if
years
you-
ago,
if
he
you,
was talking about this. He's even written a book recently.
If you take his proposition literally, if you take out the foreign financing from the mosque, from the building of new mosque in France, what do you have? You don't have anything left because the public sector won't finance the mosque. So it's really it's a
He
no
wants to-
it's a
he
no
wants to
it's a
apply
no-win
to
choice.
the
The
Muslim
Muslims
people.
are left out of the public space, so to speak. It's a real tough
He
problem.
wants to apply the same thing as what happened for Christian and Protestant, a few Protestants a few decennies ago.
Decades ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just.
I don't know.
Bruno Cotres, we heard in that clip as well, taking aim at the Gulf monarchies. And I'm sorry, but we hear candidates on both sides of the Atlantic doing that on the campaign trail. But then once they come to office, it's a different story.
Yes, it's the situation in many countries that when you come to the office, you have a new situation. We are in the time of the campaign. The time of the campaign is one thing. Then, if you are elected, then comes the time of governing. And when you govern, you discover that the complexity of our societies makes many times that it is impossible that to deliver what you were expecting to do. I still have quite a lot of question marks that it's going to be possible for any candidate. It could have been François Fillon, Alain Juppé, Nicolas Sarkozy, to deliver what they propose, and in particular reducing the deficits like they want to deny.
But on this issue, of who you align yourself with, let me ask you, because you were mentioning earlier how we're dealing with somebody who is close to the really hardcore Gaullists of yesteryear. Now, General de Gaulle would distance himself from the United States, but he was no fan of communism and he was no fan of Moscow. What's going to happen if we have a second round where we have two candidates who are close to Vladimir Putin?
Exactly, because Marine Le Pen is very close to Putin too.
I'm not sure that the French voters will pay attention to that at the time of the presidential election. It's not going to count that much on their voting decisions. It could become an issue that if we have Fillon as a president, which is telling to the French that we should renovate the partnership with Putin, with Russia, and that still we can see the situation in Syria, which is still so what is it on today? So then it could become an issue, and also it could raise the issue at one stage of the Atlantic Partnership. And so I'm not sure that in the beginnings the French voter will be extremely preoccupied that the new French president want to get closer to Putin. At one stage, it could become, yes, an issue.
When you see the weekend bombing of that hospital in Aleppo and the flattening of the city that's taking place, do you second guess your candidate when it comes to his friendship with Vladimir Putin?
I think that when you work with other countries, you don't agree with everything, but when you have an enemy, it's what François Fillon is explaining. When you have an enemy, you need to find the forces. We're not going to fight this enemy alone. Even Europe is not able to do it by itself, so we have to find alliances, and Vladimir Putin seems to be one of them.
What is remarkable is that we don't define our foreign policy by saying either we are pro-US or anti-US. We're defining it by our attitude towards Russia. This is very new, and you can see the same thing during the US campaign with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, by the way, was also pro-Russian and was also elected. So being pro-Russia is not a huge thing amongst the electorate, but it's a huge thing politically speaking to see that it's really defining our foreign policies right now in France and in the US. It's a new thing.
Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, if we have these two candidates who are the favorites next spring, is there any hope whatsoever for the incumbent, François Hollande, who's at an all-time low right now, or any other candidate.
He was always at an all-time low. There was one or twice
the left
he managed to escape of it.
The left is out of it next spring?
Okay, what the left says and what l'Élysée says, what François Hollande says, is that François Fillon was not expected to be that popular and was not expected to be the candidate, and yet against the common belief, against the polls, he was chosen, or he will be chosen, as the next candidate for the right. So maybe there is hope for François Hollande. Maybe he can, be the surprise. And the second argument is to say that François Fillon is even worse for the left than Sarkozy was. So they could unite the left against François Fillon because he's really Thatcher, he's really the enemy, Reagan and everything.
Bruno Cotres,
you have to really believe it.
Yeah, you have to really believe your own hype to say stuff like that. Bruno Cotres, surveys show that there really was a surge. Like it was in the last 2 weeks, where suddenly we saw his poll numbers start to shoot up spectacularly for François Fillon. Is there a possibility in the spring that could also be the case for somebody from the left, that there could be a candidate, another candidate who upsets the form?
I am absolutely sure that François Hollande get an excellent night and evening a few hours ago. Because obviously, if you're François Hollande on today, what would you say to your staff? Next is going to be me. François Fillon, after all, a few weeks ago was 8-10 in the polls, exactly as I am. I can make it. So I'm absolutely sure that François Hollande has passed an excellent evening.
He has been saying that for 5 years.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So he had a good night's sleep.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
But
guarantee.
All right. But has he? But realistically,
it's another story. I think that realistically speaking, the first issue is that the left is super divided, and in particular on the economic stories. François Hollande and Manuel Valls, for many left voters, they have just betrayed. They are the traitors. They are no longer the left. Many left voters consider that never again with François Hollande that said, my enemy is the world of finance.
So could we have a hard left candidate?
It could be. Well, let's see what is going on with the left primary, which is going to be plenty of surprises also. But it could be that François Hollande managed to win the primary also.
Let me ask you another question. We saw on Sunday in parts of Paris that vote left-wing, long lines of people voting. And they say, there's some 15% perhaps, according to exit polls, of the people who came to vote in these right-wing primaries, who signed the little document saying, I share the values of the right wing, etc., but who in fact are left-wing voters. Are the French moving towards the kind of mentality that we see in Germany, where they consider this their election too, and now we're in a grand coalition mentality, where it's the centrists of all stripes versus the extremes?
It's not so easy to answer. I would say first, it indicates that the primaries became a very important democratic moment for French politics. Voters like to play with that, first. The second thing is that it indicates that in that primary, there was an anti-Sarkozy front, and in particular, that motivates
there could be fewer people that come out next Sunday.
But finally, to come to your last point, it indicates also that some of the left voters, actually, they were just close enough to Alain Juppé agenda to make it. It's not only that they wanted to avoid Sarkozy, but also they were probably sharing the basic broad project of Alain Juppé, which is to make a center-right, center-left, a new coalition, new alliance.
And they'll stay home next weekend?
Certainly.
All right, a center-right candidate, François Fillon, who beat his old boss, the big surprise of the night. Not only did Nicolas Sarkozy lose, but he lost big, even in his stronghold in the western suburbs of Paris.
J'ai défendu mes convictions.
I've defended my convictions with ardour, with passion, and with France at the centre of my efforts. I haven't succeeded in convincing the majority of voters. I respect and I understand their decision to choose other political leaders for the future.
At the end, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, he says goodbye, au revoir. He doesn't say adieu.
No, he never says
farewell.
He never says farewell. Never.
So
that's the second time that he retires from our political life. French people suddenly expect that he won't come back, but you never know. It's like a Hollywood star. You never know what the next movie will be. I mean, he's really he's Romanesque, as we say. He's really a personage out of a novel. He's really a fiction character. Nicolas Sarkozy is. He's out of life, bigger than life.
Un-French in a certain respect, Bruno Cotres?
Yes, I would say a little bit. Yes, he's not fully fitted inside the French model of politicians. He has not been doing the Sciences Po. He does not come from the ENA. And Nicolas Sarkozy, from the beginning of his political career, always has shown that he was not a member of the same political world as the rest. And with Nicolas Sarkozy, exactly like Philippe said, you never know. You never know. I would not fully trust that he has fully permanently retirement.
All right, I want to thank you, Bruno Cotres. I want to thank Béatrice de Monti as well. Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet. Stay with us, though. Our Media Watch segment is next. And we say hello to Emma James.
Hi there.
Reactions to the Conservative primary, many of them coming in.
Absolutely, and as you might expect, the cartoonists are having a great deal of fun with this one. Plenty of drawings out there, mostly really depicting Nicolas Sarkozy in the role of victim, which seems to be something that people seem to quite enjoy. This particular one from Alex says, Sarkozy eliminated in the primary, and you've got him receiving a rather bruising kick up the backside from Alain Juppé and François Fillon there. Double ration of champagne, they say, a nod to the fact that Sarkozy made a comment about just have 2 rations of chips if you don't want to eat ham. It was one of his sort of anti-Muslim things when he was talking about school children. Another cartoon on very similar vein, really. You've got Alain Juppé and François Fillon flying high at the top of the Les Républicains symbol, and Sarkozy being unceremoniously kicked out at the bottom of the screen. Now, this one is a nod to the fact that there was a lot of talk about left-wing voters registering to take part in this primary, basically lying about their political ideals with the sole aim of stopping Nicolas Sarkozy getting to serve another term.
Bruno Cotres was mentioning a moment ago.
Absolutely. And this cartoon is a nod to that. They've got Sarkozy jumping up and down shouting, it's the fault of the leftists and fault of the left. And the other 2 characters there, one of them holding the Manif pour tous sign, which basically is a group of people against gay marriage, against gay adoption, and a gentleman there saying abortion is murder, and what they're saying is no, we just prefer Fillon to represent our repugnant ideas, because of course Fillon isn't that far behind Sarkozy when it comes to being to the right of the centre-right. Now, looking at what journalists are saying about this and who exactly is François Fillon, because it's the question a lot of people want answered right now, especially internationally. The Guardian newspaper, which is a UK newspaper, has this article talking about the fact that this is the era of populism, if you like, and after Brexit and after Donald Trump, is this the man who is going to win those kind of favours from voters. But they say that this advocate for fiscal austerity lives in a 12th century chateau in Western France and likes driving classic sports cars at the nearby Le Mans racetrack. So not really a man of the people, but then neither was the billionaire Donald Trump. So it's difficult to see how that's actually going to stack up. Now, as for his racing car driving credentials, it seems to be one of the few things that lots of people know about François Fillon. He is a fairly unflashy politician. Not many people seem to know that much about him. He has an unfortunate nickname of Mr. Nobody because he is this sort of unseen force, if you like. But one thing that lots of people know is the fact that he appeared on the French version of Top Gear, and they've been tweeting about him today. Newsweek has been looking at this one too, asking who is this guy that has now got the whole of the attention of Europe and, I imagine, the world too. They've tried to sex up the story a little bit by saying a tall, dark Frenchman has got pulses racing across Europe. Not quite in the way that you might imagine, though. They call him a rare beast in French politics because he is what the British refer to as a Thatcherite, a big fan of Margaret Thatcher, the former British Prime Minister. He wants to take on the trade unions, scrap the 35-hour working week and cut 500,000 public sector jobs at least. So it's not really what you would think of as a populist agenda. And all of this will go towards helping fund tax breaks for the private sector. So again, not really all that populist. They do say that the Conservatives might like it, but what about the working class that Marine Le Pen is trying to woo, or even the left-wing voters who could end up being left without much of an option at all? Now, taking a look at what people are saying online, one of the things that they're imagining is what will a François Fillon presidency look like if it happens? Some of them are taking it quite seriously, pointing out the fact that he wants to raise VAT, raise the retirement age, work longer but without better pay, that sort of thing. This Twitter user has produced an old tweet from 2012 where François Fillon promised to battle against homosexual marriage rights here in France, which of course now are enshrined in law. He says he won't try and go back on that. But back in 2012, he was very much in the fight against it. Not everyone's serious, though. Some people imagining him as Margaret Thatcher. And just one final word on this one, another humorous look at this. François Fillon's presidency, you'd need a beautician being paid €10,000 a month just to look after those eyebrows.
Oh, that's not fair. James, many thanks for that. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.